I'm back. We're going to do another one. I'd like to stick in the 1920s, all right? I'd like to do a lecture devoted to really causes of the Great Depression. I guess that's our essential question. What are the causes of the Great Depression? And we'll talk a little bit about the Great Depression, but we really are going to save the New Deal for next time. But the 1920s, as I was explaining before in the previous lecture, is a decade of extreme excess for some Americans, really a widening of gap between the rich and the poor, but also a growing middle class, middle managers and people that own small businesses and people that are starting to make a few bucks for themselves, and they're willing to spend that money. And really, they're willing to take credit out to buy things that they think that they're always going to be able to afford. We have consumer goods. We have dryers and washers and cars and vacuums and all kinds of stuff. Like, I guess today it would be the technology analogy, that there's all these new technologies, and when they come out, we all need to have them. And if that means swiping a credit card, it means swiping a credit card. So really what we're doing here is we're framing why we're going to crash and burn in 1929. I should preface by saying that. We're going to crash and burn. You're going to find a lot of analogies, I think, between our current economic depression, I don't know what to call it, depression, with the 1929 stock market crash Black Tuesday in October of 29. So let's do it, all right? Let's label this. Mr. Hughes needs to be linear, I guess, and going to have some dots in here. So dot number one, causes of the Great Depression: credit and consumerism and excess. People that are buying things that they really can't afford. Sounds familiar? And really doing that in the anticipation that I'll have a job next year, that I'll be making more money, that my investment's going to come back and I'm going to be okay. So there's a lot of faith in this kind of economy, and people were living a large life. A lot of people, maybe they shouldn't have been, but nevertheless, the kind of growth of credit and this growth of consumerism and people buying stuff because he's got one is going to be a contributing factor when people stop buying. All right. Reason number two. Boy, does it suck to be a farmer in the 1920s. All other groups, I keep saying that word all, you're not supposed to say the word all in social studies, but a lot of other groups didn't too. African Americans, as I mentioned, and I'm sure the Mexican migrant worker in California isn't, rolling, in G's. But I think the concept here for farmers is they're the group that don't do well, because this is what happens when you're a farmer and you think you're going to do well. In the 1920s, like a lot of Americans, farmers invested in themselves. And they go to the bank and they get a loan, maybe to get a new tractor, or some type of farm machinery equipment thing or something, I don't know, or a bigger acreage, whatever, with the anticipation, like all other Americans, that this is going to return, that I'm going to be better off than I was before. Now, first of all, the magic word of what they're doing wrong is called overproduction. When you make too much stuff of something and you're really good at it, like let's say you make kazoos, right? If you only make a certain amount of kazoos, and maybe the guy who lives in California, the other kazoo competitor, only makes a few, we can charge a decent amount to get a profit on that kazoo, because maybe there's more Americans looking for kazoos than are kazoos out there. But if I expand my factory and start pouring out kazoos like whatever, the price is going to be ridiculously low. If you go to the store and there's 1 million kazoos, they're going to be like a penny each. So farmers, by overproducing and borrowing to do that, are really kind of sowing the seeds of destruction. And they did not profit in the 1920s. They were really kind of the underbelly of this Great Depression, kind of the group that was suffering and was hit before anybody else was hit. Sounds familiar? Farmers, overproduction, reason number two. Reason number three is related to wages. Wages in the 1920s, at least for the lower middle class, the people that are really spending and buying and living and breathing and working, not that rich people don't live and breathe, but that are, really, whatever, I don't even know what to say about it. Their wages weren't rising. Rich people's wages were rising. So these stagnant wages, that's the vocabulary word, stagnant wages. Wages that go and stay the same. You have economic problems that are being sowed when that happens. When you pay me the same amount every year, like let's say I'm making, $30,000 a year, and I'm living on 30,000, I'm buying on 30,000, and I think I'm doing okay. Well, next year when I'm making 30,000, everything else in the world is going up a nickel, and the next year it's going up $1. And eventually what I have to do if I have stagnant wages is I have to cut back on my spending. I can't afford things I used to be able to afford. Sounds familiar? And when you cut back on demand. And when you cut back on demand, then people that have supply have to drop their prices or have to fire workers. So if you work for the kazoo factory and we stop buying kazoos, guess what? Someone at the kazoo factory is going down. You're fired. And that kazoo worker maybe loves to buy potato chips. And now his little hungry butt can't afford potato chips. So he stops eating potato chips, and lo and behold, Lay's worker, you're fired. And you love socks, yada, yada, yada. So this idea of stagnant wages is a contributing factor. Next concept, margin buying. You ready for this? Margin buying was the concept of everybody wanting to get on the gravy train. And when I say gravy train, I mean the stock market. The stock market in the 1920s did tremendously well. Stocks rose, and again, the way the stock market works is the more that people believe a business is going to do better, the more that they buy that stock, and the more you buy that stock, the more that stock begins to cost, and you think you're making money. So, as rich Americans already knew this, and we're doing this, the consumers, the masses, they want to be on that train too. I want to go where they went. So, what they developed was a plan to get more people to buy stocks. Basically a credit card plan for stocks. It's called margin buying. You were allowed to buy a stock. Oh, I hate math, guys. Let's try one. Let's say the stock was $100. And you go to your stockbroker and you go, man, I want to buy a stock. Because if I buy a stock, I'm going to make a lot of money. So I'd love to buy a stock in Hershey. And the guy goes, well, it's $100. You go, I got $10. Your stockbroker would go, well, we can make a deal. You put the $10 down and lock in your price at $100. And then you bought it on the margin. You own the stock. Very much like you kind of own a car, even though you haven't paid for the whole thing. You'll owe me the $90. But I tell you what, buddy, you know what's going to happen? Oh, yeah. That stock's going to be worth $120 next year, and $190 the next year, and $400 the next year. And this $10 investment, my God, the $90 you owe me, forget about it, bro. That's great if the stock keeps going up. But on Black Tuesday, when that stock market crashes, people are left with stocks that are like a penny. You know, like Citibank, is it? Right? Citibank's worth like $1 and a penny. It's ridiculous. So, you know, if you had bought that on the margin, if you bought that stock 2 years ago at $50 or $60, and you still owe your stockbroker for $10,000 worth of stocks, and it's worth, 18 cents, where's the tallest building I can jump off of? It's really, really bad. So margin buying is not a good thing. So the stock market crashes in October 29, basically because of all of this credit and all of this debt and all of this lack of demand and the overproduction and kind of all of it culminating into kind of like, one day you rip the red curtain back and there's the wizard and, he's 5'1" and he's bald and he's got 4 teeth. And when we find out and everybody dumps their stocks, the stock market crashes and enormous wealth is lost. Sound familiar? So what is the impact on this? Well, first of all, a lot of banks closed. And when banks closed, people lost their money. And this just steamrolls the problem. Herbert Hoover is in power, by the way. Just say it. Hoover, what the hell? Herbert Hoover was a laissez-faire president who believed in tariffs as the answer, taxing imports. That was the way out of the Great Depression. He would feed dogs, signed the law to feed dogs, almost dogs. Wouldn't feed people. He's a believer in individual initiative. I'm not, criticizing him. He believes it, that, you got to let the man do it for himself. So Herbert Hoover, oh my God. Other concepts of the 1929 or 1930 era of Herbert Hoover, the bonus army. You want to Hoover, what the hell? Oh my God. The bonus army goes to Washington, D.C., right? World War I veterans. And they want their money because they're in the Great Depression, and we got like 30% unemployment. It's ridiculous. You got, bums on, on trains. So they go, they ask for their money, right? And then they see the army coming, and they're all like, yeah, here comes the army, bro. We're getting our money. Guess what Hoover does? He has the army attack the old army. Hoover, what the hell? Ran him out of town. wouldn't give them their wages. He's hardcore. He's going to lose to FDR in 1929, but you need to know that. Laissez-faire. Put your hands up. Put your hands up 10 times if you have to. Herbert Hoover mismanaged the Great Depression. High unemployment. We have migrants. We have Okies going to California. We have the Dust Bowl, which destroys the environment. And we have just debt and banks closing and no faith, and the American dream is dead, and oh my God, we need a doctor. Great Depression. All right.